everybody. It's Monday, June 20th, and that means it's time for another episode of Chatting with Agnes and Cecilia, Nonprofit Conversations. I'm your host, Cecilia Sepp. I'm the principal and founder of Rogue Tulips Consulting. I'd like to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our global audience, wherever you may be. Thanks for joining us. And this year, we have had a lot of first-time guests, as we have mentioned in previous episodes. And today we are delighted to have first-time guest Rachel Clemens from Mighty Citizen. And today we're going to dive into the topic of marketing maturity for nonprofit organizations. But first, I'd like to throw it over to Rachel to say hello and tell us a little about herself.
Thanks, Cecilia. I am thrilled to be a first-time guest. I'm Rachel Clemens. I'm the CMO at Mighty Citizen. If you're not familiar with Mighty Citizen, we're the branding, marketing, and digital agency for nonprofits. So essentially, we help our clients increase their revenue, boost their awareness, and essentially better their communities through all things communication. I'm also the mom of a preteen who is mid-snark, I would say. He's not peak snark because I know there's more coming. But yeah, those are my two biggest jobs.
That is so funny. That's sort of like Cherry Blossom Festival in the spring in the Washington, D.C. area. Are we at peak snark or just early snark? I'm sure most of our audience.
Well on his way.
Oh, that's so funny. Maybe we'll do an episode on snarkiness in the future.
Yeah,
I think it'd be a blast. But not today, because today we're talking about marketing maturity. And, before we dive into some of the other things that we want to cover today, like the Mighty GPS, which is a really powerful tool for testing your own marketing programs. Rachel, what is marketing maturity?
Yeah, so marketing maturity is essentially marketing effectiveness. If you ask your average marketer, how well is your marketing working? I think the first thing you'd probably get is kind of like uneasy, sort of nod, like, I think it's working. A lot of us don't know. I liken it to, the Yeti, the Sasquatch, that mythical creature living in the woods that people know exists or think exists, but they can't quite prove it. I think a lot of us think that our marketing is working, but we don't always have the tools to prove that it's working, either to ourselves or to our leadership or to, our team members. And so marketing maturity is an understanding of your marketing effectiveness. Because, there's a journey that we're all on. We start at the very beginning of our marketing know-how, and ultimately, hopefully, we end up as experts. And what that expertise looks like is different among every nonprofit. But there's that journey. And so, that's your marketing maturity journey. And so marketing maturity is just a measure of where you are, I think, along that journey.
So it's basically like the effectiveness of the program you have in place.
Yeah. And, there's going to be some areas where your marketing is really effective and some other areas where it's not that effective. And so I think understanding those helps us to increase our return on investment and make sure that the money that we're putting into marketing is actually working for us.
Well, and there are always ways to improve marketing, of course. You can tweak a logo, you can tweak your tagline. You can do measurement of your different audience segments, right? Mm-hmm. So what are some other ways people might be able to improve their marketing program?
Yeah, so we break the marketing down into 6 categories. Mm-hmm. And the first of those is research and analytics. And so I can tell you, I'll give you the others. So research and analytics, branding and strategy, marketing and SEO, UX design and content, technology and team dynamics. So you see it's a full breadth of all types of marketing broken up into these categories. And I can tell you, just having had our tool out for a while now, that the research and analytics area is the area where people are finding that they are the most deficit in their marketing maturity. And so what that looks like is a lot of organizations are not actively talking to their audiences and doing the research to understand what their audiences are looking for from their organization or from their programs. And so that's an area that we're seeing a lot of people need help in. It's that idea of making sure they understand what their audiences are looking for so they can provide it. So that's one area.
I think, and I'm really glad that you emphasized the research and analysis segment of marketing maturity, because of course, I am a total nerd. Anybody who meets me will tell you that. And I do a lot of research for clients, and the analysis, though, is actually the most important part of research, because collecting data is just the first step. It's what does that data mean? how is it useful and how's it going to direct your next decisions? And bringing that back to marketing, I think that's probably even more important on a certain level, because what are people responding to? What are they purchasing? What are they reading on your website? And what does this mean for how you're going to focus your content? So one of the things though, okay, well, first I have to ask you this. You're a chief marketing officer, and I always love to ask people this question because people fall on either side of the fence. Is marketing a subset of communications, or is communications a subset of marketing? The ongoing argument. So which side do you fall on?
And I love this question. So in my opinion, they're two sides of the same coin, right? Mm-hmm. But I would say that marketing is a subset of communications. In my mind, communications is both internal communications and external communications, whereas marketing is primarily external. So I think if one laddered up to the other, it would be marketing ladders up to communications.
Wow, what a great explanation. I agree with you, by the way. I don't force my belief system on anyone, but I've always kind of thought that too. Not in both sides of the coin, of course, but yeah, I've always kind of thought communications was kind of the umbrella.
Yeah, I use them pretty interchangeably, honestly, because to me, there's, I don't know. I think a lot of people put things like PR under communications, and that's true. And PR is not marketing, but it's all kind of lumped. To me, it's all sort of the same thing. It's just right. That's how I would define it. Yeah.
Well, and I kind of look at it as, because, being somebody who's done a lot of communications work over the years, and I do my marketing now, of course, I think about it a lot. And I think it's really what you're trying to accomplish with that message, and who you're trying to reach. So, and what's the intention behind the message. So, but before we veer off into, the philosophical aspects of communications and our audiences, we should kind of bring it back to marketing maturity. So, I had the opportunity to participate in the beta test of a tool that Mighty Citizen has launched, and it's called the Mighty GPS. And was very pleased that our company scored in the 3rd level out of the 4 levels. So, Rachel, can you tell the audience a little bit about that tool? Because I want to emphasize to everybody, there is no fee for this tool. It is offered just for you to use. And I have read part of the white paper that also supports this tool, and it's got a lot of good advice in it. So, Rachel, I'm going to throw it back over to you and let you tell us a little bit more about the Mighty GPS tool.
So, as marketers, we had that same question we were asking ourselves all the time: how effective is our marketing? So we set out to build a tool that helped us to answer that. And the outcome was the Mighty GPS, and it's a self-assessment that people can take to help them get a score for their overall marketing maturity. And so it takes less than 10 minutes. Our data is showing that most people take about 6 or 7 minutes to get through it. And it's across those 6 categories I mentioned. And the outcome of it asks a bunch of questions of you, and then you answer those questions. And the outcome is that you're going to get a score between 0 and 100. That is your marketing maturity score. And based on your score, it's going to put you in one of 4 categories. Those categories are crawling, walking, running, or soaring. And so, Cecilia, you were in the running category, which is actually a great that, in my opinion, that's the best category to be in, because it means you're doing really well, and yet there is some room for improvement, which is always, exciting. And so, yeah, it's going to give you an overall score. It's actually also when you finish the GPS, the Mighty GPS, you get that score, you get your stage, and then we're also going to give you a custom report delivered to you that's personalized to your score. So it's going to give you your score for each of those categories. So if you're in the running overall stage, for example, you might be running overall, but crawling in research and analytics, right? Because that's the area that we know people are struggling most. And it's then going to give you next steps for each category. So it's going to say, hey, if you need improvement in this category, here's some next steps that might be valuable to you based on how you scored. So that eventually we're just really hoping that it's a tool for nonprofits to go in, take it, set a benchmark for where they are today, and then go and implement some of the next steps in order to benchmark themselves again 6 months from now, a year from now, and show progress.
And that I really like you mentioned that, Rachel, because we do have to go back and test it again. So for example, I should probably do it again. I haven't done it since the beta test, and that's been, gosh, a good
A while
6, 7
ago.
months
Yeah.
since that happened. So um, what else can you tell us about marketing maturity? I mean, do marketing programs ever end, or are they just constantly evolving?
Well, they're constantly evolving, right? Marketing is, I mean, as much as I would love to do this every time I finish a project, it's
Right.
not set it and forget it. We've got to constantly be evolving. Marketing doesn't let us take a sleep on anything, it's just constantly changing, so much to keep up with. I think the thing too is, organizations who are smaller, who don't have a lot of resources, often feel kind of like they're constantly trying to keep up. And I know that that's true. But what I hope that the Mighty GPS does for people is to say, here's an area where you're really strong. Your marketing is really effective. And so keep doing more of that. It's working for you. And here's an area where you're not really strong. And the answer is not necessarily to say, okay, I'm not strong in our content. Our content needs help. It's not to say you have to go work in that area, but to say, do I need to do better in that area? Because for some organizations, they're small, their resources are limited. They cannot be all things to all people. They just don't, they're doing so much already. There's not a lot of room to do more. So I'm hoping this tool will help people say, what we are doing is either working or not working. And if it's not working, let's go do it better, or let's drop it. Like, let's not put resources into that thing that's not actually working for us.
Right. And I wish more people would do that. I've been talking a lot with a friend of mine who's also a consultant. We partner a lot lately. We've been using the term purposeful abandonment quite a lot.
Yes, I love that.
And it's really like, some people call it sunsetting. You can call it purposeful abandonment. You can call it slaying the sacred zombie cow. Love that sacred zombie cow, by the way. I believe David Gamble invented that phrase, but it's and for those of you who don't know what a sacred zombie cow is, and no offense to people who may think cows are sacred, so please keep that in mind. But sacred zombie cow is a program at your organization that's not really doing anything anymore. It's really not alive, and it's just kind of hanging around, and it's taking resources and not returning anything. And so that's why purposeful abandonment is really so important, because you have to be thoughtful about when it's time to let things go. And perhaps thinking about the Marie Kondo method of letting things go. Does it spark joy? Is it making you happy? Is it doing anything? Is it
bringing
contributing?
Return?
Exactly. So,
Got it.
Get rid of it, say goodbye, and let it go. And so really, that's a lot, I think, of what goes into this, like this constant evolution of all of our programs, whether it's marketing, communications, membership, services, whatever it is we're doing as a nonprofit organization. I think that's what we need to look at. So, and we're coming near the end of our episode already. And this has been such a fun conversation. And I hope you will come back, Rachel. We'd love to have you back to talk about, maybe we'll talk more about the communications versus marketing discussion.
Cecilia, I have no doubt you and I could talk about, we could talk for hours about marketing, right?
Oh, totally. I'm always surprised, you're speaking about research and analytics, and, and I'm doing a lot of marketing. I do a lot of different things to promote the company. The name of the company helps quite a bit, by the way, because it stands out. But yeah. I do things and I wonder, are people seeing it? Is it having an impact? And then one day I'll be having a conversation and somebody will say, oh, you're just everywhere. Like, I see you're doing all this stuff, but you don't always have the data to back that up.
Right. No, it's true. Qualitative data, right?
Right. Exactly. That is definitely, Dean West and I were talking one time, and he said that if somebody tells you an anecdote, somebody on his staff says, well, that means your N equals 1.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
For your data. So it's really, but it's so fun talking about research and marketing and having you on here, Rachel. It's been a really fun conversation. So I hate to end it, but purposeful abandonment, right? All good things must come to an end. So no matter how good they were. So, but Rachel, before we sign off, we always like to ask our guests, what's the one thought you would like the audience to take away? And then what's the best way to find out more about Mighty Citizen, the Mighty GPS, and maybe get in contact with you if they had questions?
So the one thing I would want people to take away is that you can measure your marketing effectiveness. As much as it feels like this thing that is elusive to all of us, it is measurable. And you can find Mighty Citizen at mightycitizen.com, or the Mighty GPS if you want to go take it right now. It's available at themightygps.com. And then you can find me on LinkedIn, Rachel Clemens with Mighty Citizen.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you so much, Rachel. It's been a great conversation. And having actually tried the Mighty GPS, I can say I found it pretty useful. And as Rachel said, it doesn't take long and you can get a lot of information from it. So I say check it out. So, but unfortunately, we have to go rogue for now. We'll be back next week with another exciting episode of Chatting with Agnes and Cecilia Nonprofit Conversations. If you haven't already, subscribe to us on YouTube or your favorite audio podcast service. We're available on anchor.fm, Spotify in both audio and video version, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and a variety of other podcast services. So find us on your favorite and check out our previous episodes. If you'd like to learn more about Rogue Tulips Consulting and how we can help your organization bloom outside the box, you can find more about us at roguetulips.com. If you are a current CAE or a CAE candidate looking for CAE support and education, check out our education program, the 501c League, and you can find more about the League at the 501cleague.net. On behalf of myself and Rachel, thanks for joining us this week, and we'll see you next time.